Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are still in May, which is dedicated to advanced air mobility and vertical flight. And we thank Quantum Systems Inc. for sponsoring this entire month. So great to see everybody out there. Just remember, this is live. And so absolutely tell us where you're coming from. Drop in your questions, any positive encouragement. We love all of that. And by the way, if you missed any of the back episodes, please check them out on DroneLife TV on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do, because we had Dave Sharpin, the CEO of Quantum Systems Inc., as our first guest this month. And last week, we had Clifford Cruz, the CEO of Skyway. So again, if you missed those or any of our back episodes, absolutely go back and watch those on demand. But today, everybody, I'm so excited. I mean, not that I'm not excited every week, because I am. We always have incredible guests. But I'm so excited to have with us two experts in vertical flight. We have Jason Pritchard, the executive editor of eVTOL Insights, and we have Mike Hirschberg, the executive director of the Vertical Flight Society. So great to have both of you gentlemen here.
To be here.
Thanks ever so much for having me, Dawn. Pleasure talking to you as always.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump in, because we have so much to talk about. And let's start with you, Mike. Tell us a little bit about the Vertical Flight Society for those that aren't aware of what it is and what you do.
Yeah, so we were started in 1943, almost 80 years ago, as the American Helicopter Society. But really from the very beginning, we were always looking at more than just American and more than just helicopter. In 1969, we started going by AHS, the Vertical Flight Society. And in 2018, we officially changed our name to the Vertical Flight Society, because especially with all the, VTOL drones and the eVTOL, people kept getting hung up on the word helicopter, and I kept saying, no, we're really, more than that. But we changed the name, and it's really, we're a nonprofit, a charitable educational society for anybody interested in vertical flight, primarily engineers and scientists and leaders that are trying to work on advancing technology and bring the community together to help provide lift to everyone seeking to advance vertical flight and technology.
And I'm smiling, Mike, because no pun intended, to provide lift to everyone. And Mike, I mean, I've seen exponential growth in your membership over, since I started my business, which was October of 2019. I've been obviously a member, I've been following you, and I've just seen this explosion of individuals and companies joining vertical flight. Can you share with us kind of where you're at?
Yeah, so COVID took a hit on individual numbers, but we're right around 6,500 individual members. So,
wow.
We had gotten down. During the drawdown from the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, we had gotten down a bit, but it's about 1,000 members more than we had 6 or 7 years ago. And compared to, we also do have corporate members, and we had gotten down again in the 2015 timeframe, had gotten down to about 65, 70 corporate members. Now we have 175. So wow. From companies, and mainly small businesses. So it's interesting, we get most of our income from the larger companies and their participation, like in our forum last week. But we invest heavily our time and effort in small companies. So we have about 100 small companies now that have joined in the last 6 or 7 years. And it's just really been really gratifying that essentially every single major eVTOL company is now a member of the Vertical Flight Society, including companies like EHang in China and around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jason, we are going to talk to you in a second, but before we do, I really want to pivot here. We've got folks already dropping notes in the chat, so that's pretty phenomenal so early on. And Chris Wedgeworth is out there. He is a regular and has given us the little clap sign. And Arlen Denny, one of my newer LinkedIn connections, is coming to us live from Stuttgart, Germany, and Marshall Nelson is coming from Cape Town. Mitchell's Plain, Cape Town. So we've got a global audience, and that's probably a great segue to you, Jason, because Jason is coming to us live from the United Kingdom. So Jason, thank you so much also for being here, and tell us a little bit about eVTOL Insights.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Dawn. So, hi to everyone joining us for this episode as well. Just wanted to shout out, great to be share the same stage with Mike as well, someone who I respect a lot for all the work that's done at the Vertical Flight Society. But with eVTOL Insights, so we're a leading news website covering news, features, podcasts, short videos. We'll talk a bit more about our first in-person conference in London, which we did as well. But essentially, we set ourselves up in April 2020, sort of kind of at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I'm sure you'll agree as well, Dawn and Mike, that the last year or even the last 2 years, we've just seen such incredible growth from new partnerships being made to companies that are now trading publicly on the stock market as well, to milestones, flight testing. So we really try and cover all of that, and not just in one main place as well. There's a lot of incredible work that's going on in the USA with the likes of Joby, Archer, Wisk, Beta Technologies, for example, but also in Europe with Volocopter, with Lilium, with Vertical Aerospace, but also, as you mentioned as well, Mike, with EHang in the Asia Pacific region. Also, we've got SkyDrive. So there's in Japan, sorry. So there's a lot of really, really excellent work that's being done, and it's been an absolute privilege since being part of eVTOL Insights to report on not just those new partnerships, as I mentioned, but speaking to your good self, Dawn, to Mike, to a whole load of industry professionals about this space as well. And that's covering subjects such as infrastructure, battery development, actual eVTOL aircraft developers that are building the actual aircraft themselves. So it's been a real privilege, as I said, as well. And we know the industry is only going to get more exciting. There's more challenges as well. So we're trying to sort of provide our community with as much information as we can, and really sort of help drive that excitement, but also give something to talk about that we have each week on our clubhouse as well. So yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but it's been a brilliant 2 years, and long may that continue.
Yeah, so Jason just dropped a whole lot of information there. And speaking of dropping, I hope we can drop his evtolinsights.com website into the chat so everybody has that, as well as the Vertical Flight Society's organization, or eVTOL News. We'll drop that one next. So I have these two folks on, these fine gentlemen on here for a reason, because when you think about the vertical flight industry and what is happening, you want to know where to get the best information. It's from their organizations. And I cannot give a higher endorsement to either Jason or Mike and the incredible things you're doing. We're going to peel those back. By the way, Jason also just mentioned Clubhouse. That's one of many things eVTOL Insights does. And Mike, I believe you're a regular in Jason's Clubhouse every Thursday at in my time zone, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Jason, what is your Clubhouse called?
So we all new names welcome as well, but it's a week in the eVTOL, a week of news in the eVTOL market. So what we normally do is we just bring everyone together, and it's just really an opportunity to discuss and really debate the key stories that we've been covering. So it's moderated by myself, as you mentioned, Dawn. We've got Mike, who's brilliant at sort of adding extra insight, extra expertise and analysis on some of the stories that we're talking about as well. It's every Thursday at 5 o'clock British summertime. So we're about sort of half an hour, 45 minutes. But we've got some really great industry experts as well. So we've had the likes of, we've had Julie Garland from Avtrain. We've had Dana Jensen from the US Air Force that's joined as well. Rex Alexander, as we know, a good friend of yourself, Dawn, that joins for us as well. Clint Harper, Urban Movement Labs as well. There's so many other great people that I'm sure I've forgotten that really do contribute to making this our Clubhouse session the success it has been as well. All people welcome to share their thoughts as well. So it's been a really good addition to our services, and something that I think people enjoyed, certainly when couldn't do the in-person events as well, but they felt that they could actually have that conversation with people and actually get close to the industry experts that are really making a difference.
Well, and it's such an intimate setting too. I mean, here we're getting folks dropping in the chat still, right? Which is great. We've got Tim Kuska from Israel. We've got a LinkedIn user from Munich. We've got Keegan Chedier clapping out there for us. We do have someone, Jason, I'm going to ask you to drop in the chat, or no, this is for Mike. Please share the link for membership for Vertical Flight Society. So while Mike is typing that out, I'm going to ask Jason this question because, you know, there's so much going on. We're going to peel back all the different platforms you have besides Clubhouse, and we're going to do the same with Vertical Flight Society. But let's do it now. It's a great segue. Tell me about some of the initiatives that you've launched recently. So Clubhouse is one. We just talked about that. And note to self, maybe we can get your Clubhouse link in there, Jason, at some point. Okay. But before we do, just kind of roll through, you know, I've been a fan. You just mentioned you have a weekly roll up, you know, newsletter that comes out, which is incredible. You did the networking, the final Friday networking event, and so much. You just had a live event. So I don't want to steal your thunder here, but if you can maybe roll through, let's say the top 3 initiatives that you've launched in the last year or so people kind of can appreciate what's out there and what they can plug into.
Yeah, no, thanks ever so much, Dawn. So we're really keen to help offer something for all of the community as well. We know that everyone's really busy. So the virtual networking event that you mentioned, that's something that we do on the final Friday of every month. I'm very pleased actually to say that our next event is actually next week. Although slight caveat being it's on a Thursday rather than a Friday, but the concept of it is it's an hour and a half. So Thursday, May the 26th, it's from 4 p.m. till 5:30 British summertime. I'm delighted to say that we'll have 2 special guests that will join us. So we've got 30 minutes of networking, 2 50-minute presentations, then another 30 minutes of networking to finish. We've got John Damush from Iris Automation that will be joining us. He's going to do a fireside chat with me. We're just going to talk to us a bit more about the detect and avoid, a bit more about the BVLOS work that Iris is doing, obviously with the Cassia detect and avoid. John, as we know, fountain of knowledge of all things in the aviation sector as well. So I'm sure he'll have some interesting insights about the recent FAA certification stories that I know we'll talk about in a bit more detail. And then we've got another gentleman called Tom Freund from a company called Digisol. So it's a really interesting concept. We had really good feedback as well. It's absolutely free to attend. More information is on our website, www.evtolinsights.com. It's just a really good way. It's sort of like we're doing on Zoom now, and it's just a good way for people informally to chat amongst each other, share ideas, hear from industry experts like John and Tom, and we do that every month. So we had to sort of put it on hold for a bit for our London conference, but that's happening next week as well. So yeah, Thursday, May the 26th from 4 till 5:30 British summertime, and more information is on our website as well. So that's one initiative.
Okay, and I'm going to jump in before you go to your next 2, because if we could drop the link from last week's Clubhouse. So I think most of the folks that are out there that follow me on the Dawn of Drones know that I've linked my own Clubhouse. It's right after Jason's. 11 a.m. Mountain Time every Thursday, called Drone Law Connections. Well, Mike wasn't able to make it because he was running his own mega event out there in Houston, Texas, which we're going to get to here in a second. But Jason did a great job explaining a lot of this in greater detail. So check out that replay if you like audio. That's audio only. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well, Jason. So you've got your final Friday, which will be Thursday with John Jamush. And by the way, Iris is one of my strategic partners. I'm a mega super fan, and he just actually pushed out a blog post that I wrote about their ground-based surveillance solution for beyond visual line of sight. So that's all over LinkedIn for those that haven't seen that. But okay, so that's one. Give me 2 more, Jason.
Yeah, so the other ones we're doing as well, the initiatives really. So I guess the next one as well is, I can't reveal too much details. I know we talked a little bit about it in our Clubhouse last week. Is very pleased to say that following our resounding success of our London conference. I'm very pleased to say we're actually going to be doing a US conference next year. No, not next year. This year in October.
You said.
Yeah, in October. So I'm keeping my cards close to my chest, so I can't say too much. But really keen to sort of come over to the US and sort of give people a bit of a flavour of what we did in London. So give a bit of a background. So we have, I think we had nearly 90 attendees come to our London conference, and we have like 16 slots. So we have 12 keynote presentations and 4 panel discussions, but just similar to what the great work that Mike did with Forum 78 as well. Just another opportunity to bring everyone together, share ideas. People are really keen to talk about this industry. It's only going to get more and more exciting. So we're hopefully going to be revealing a bit more details next week as well. So that's the next initiative we've got. So as well as doing the in-person virtual and networking events, we're also looking to do the in-person ones as well. So doing a bit of best of both worlds as well in that one. And then I guess the third initiative, although it's not quite a sort of a new sort of one we've done, but I know you both have been included as well, and that's the Power Book. And I think that's something I really like to describe as well, because for those who don't know, this is something that we do. Well, we've done twice now, but we really want to recognise the incredible work that's been done by men and women in this sector. So Dawn and Mike sort of very deservedly were included in this Power Book, and this is just recognising the thought leaders, the influencers and the innovators that are really helping to shape this industry. So very pleased to say that we're doing that. That gets released in January. Again, can't reveal too much details, but we've got some other really exciting work in the pipeline that's similar to that, but on a bit of a smaller scale as well. So the idea with that is we're just really trying to recognise the work that's going on in this industry as well, and being that voice that we can help showcase and celebrate the achievements that's been done in this industry as well. So yeah, fortunately I can't say too much information, but they're the initiatives that we're working on this year, and I will happily sort of share more details as and when they're available.
Yeah, so much going on. And for Jason, if you wouldn't mind dropping in the chat the Power Book link, and I'm going to pivot to Mike and ask you the same question about kind of your top 3 initiatives. I know you have a battle rhythm, if you will, with Vertical Flight Society and some of the events that you run annually. So if you can kind of give people an idea, you just finished, as Jason alluded to, Forum 78. Maybe give us a little background on that and kind of where we are.
Well, first of all, let me just say, I love working with Jason. He is such an uplifting person. All the things they do is so giving, right? I mean, the Power Book, which was just brilliant, if I can use the British expression. The Final Fridays, it's free to come and network and learn, and it's just really great. And the clubhouse is always enjoyable. So, thank you, Jason, for your contributions, you personally, and eVTOL Insights. .com. And I'll say a couple things. So we started our website, eVTOL.news, in 2017, I guess it was, right around the time of the first Uber Elevate. And there weren't any other news sites, so that's why we called it eVTOL.news, and we try to capture news and things like that. And Jason's website and other news sites are so good now at breaking, daily stories and some of the great work that eVTOL Insights has done now, hiring Stoner as a contributor for really the in-depth articles. Anyway, so I could talk all day on how great it is that Jason and eVTOL Insights are doing. But for our, so we had our 78th annual forum. It was actually in Fort Worth, Texas. Last
that's
week.
right. Sorry. Yep.
So we go to the sites where there's big, helicopter and I pasted in, put in the link to our upcoming events, vtol.org/events, and I'll say. VTOL.org is our original URL that we got in 1993 or whatever. Even though we were AHS, American Helicopter Society, we've always been focused on VTOL.org. But we had just under 1,300 attendees last week. We had, and it's primarily a technical conference, so we had about 220 technical papers that were presented. And this is by, industry, academia, and government, a lot from NASA, a lot from students and researchers and industry. But as the eVTOL companies are growing and more willing to discuss things, for instance, Joby had 3 technical papers talking about their design evolution and acoustics, giving actual, data and comparison, and just really brilliant, great talks as well. And then we also had invited presentations. So we had the CEOs of the major helicopter companies. We had a British general actually talking about vertical flight and allied usage. Made some insightful comments on helicopters in Ukraine. We had about 50 or 60 invited speakers from across industry, number of insightful eVTOL talks, and we had our awards. So we had a lot of great stuff.
So Mike, I'm going to ask, is there a way for folks to grab this content on demand now if they missed that, right? They didn't get to the event last week?
So yes and no.
Okay.
So on our site, we have information, eVTOL.org. We have posted a news. So eVTOL.org says news. So we don't record the technical papers, the technical paper presentations. So the primary resource for those are the technical papers, and like I said, there's 220 of those. So you can buy access to the proceedings or individual papers. We did record all of the special sessions, all the invited talks, the awards, the CEO presentations, and that's not up yet. But some of that stuff will be put on YouTube. Some of it will be for members only. So if you're not a member, you should join. Yeah. And for individuals, it's not that much. It's $95 US per year, unless you're retired or a student or something. We have military, we have discounted rates.
No, that's so, Mike. I'm gonna take the liberty of giving you your number 2 initiative, because it's something you also did at Forum 78. You had Diversiflight Scholars, and you've launched with Danielle McLean a Diversiflight podcast. So, obviously, for those that have followed me, they know that everybody knows this about me, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is something that is very important to me. And frankly, it's important to the industry. And when I say industry, I'm talking all STEM career fields, but in particular those that have plugins to the small UAS all the way up to the large VTOL aircraft, right? Cargo, flying drones, etc. So tell us about, I love what you're doing in the diversity arena, Mike, because frankly, it's unique. Other than, women and drones, right? Which is so obviously invested in diversity, and with whom you've recently partnered with an educational partnership. You're walking that talk. And so tell us a little bit about some of your diversity initiatives, the scholars, the podcast, if you don't mind. And by the way, our time is flying by. Like, I don't even know how this is possible, but I want to kind of roll through that, your 3rd initiative, and then I do want to talk about this FAA certification, because I'd say it's the hottest news going on right now, and I feel like we owe that to our audience. So if you could roll through those 2, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll try to make it really short. So really appreciate the help from you, Dawn, and P3 Tech. Mentioned you helped with connecting us with Women in Drones and that partnership. So there's a talent crisis. Every single one of these eVTOL companies needs like 1,000 employees, to get the certification. They're all ramping up. At the same time, there's military rotorcraft programs and commercial rotorcraft programs, and they're trying to hire hundreds of engineers. So there are not enough vertical flight engineers or experts in these different areas to reach the timelines that everybody wants for eVTOL and other things. So we've got to bring more people into vertical flight, and one of the ways to do that is obviously to be welcoming, to be inclusive, to bring people in. One of the initiatives we have, besides people that are already in this industry, trying to attract people from adjacent industries into vertical flight, is also to reach out to students. So we've had STEM initiatives for many years. We started a Diversified Scholars program, which is basically looking for students at U.S. recognized minority serving institutions and giving them an all expenses paid trip to the forum. And we had 3 scholars, which was great, and we learned a lot from them. We're reaching out to schools that aren't traditionally like the top, Penn State, Georgia Tech, University of Maryland, universities that have these, millions of dollars a year in vertical flight research and development. So it's been really eye-opening, and we're just hoping to make a difference to them and to attract others to the industry. And this is really kind of almost a matter of survival, or maybe a matter of, actually reaching the goals that we have for advanced air mobility. You mentioned also accessibility. So our student design competition this year is basically how can you make an accessible air taxi, design an air taxi for passengers with reduced mobility or other disabilities or hidden disabilities. How can you make an air taxi that will be, an electric eVTOL? How can you make it so that it's accessible and not just people with normal range of mobility? So, we're trying to touch all these different points, and like I said, be a welcoming environment to bring people to vertical flight and advanced air mobility. And like I said, we've learned a lot. We're trying to help others also learn that.
Yeah, so yay and thank you. Mike, you really inspired me, and actually a really great colleague and friend of mine, Tony Drummond from Global Aero Management Group, also has ties to Prestige Air Group, which is a crewed air, charter aircraft company, inspired for my first Law Tech Connect workshop at AUVSI Exponential, the Caresoft Scholars Program, where Caresoft funded 12 students to attend my event, and faculty members. And I had a picture up there, but this is one of those things where I was just talking to a company the other day. Diversity has to be deliberate. Like, there's a lot of great talented people out there, and you can hire, you have to be deliberate in who you're hiring and what you're doing, what message you're sending out, what images you're putting on your website. So thank you for what you're doing there. By the way, One Vision Ariel is out there thanking us for the links and has a question. So I'm going to divert for a second, Mike, before we get to your number 3 initiative, to ask you this question, maybe both of you a little bit, because I always talk about the industry, and when I say industry, I'm being very overly broad, right? Like I'm talking about the small UAS all the way up to the very, very large VTOL aircraft that will be passenger carrying, large cargo. This question is, are your efforts, both of you, really more directed at these large VTOL aircraft companies, life-saving platforms, transplants, etc.? What about VTOLs that are at the hobbyist level, so those smaller aircraft? Is there relevant information for those folks in the news and information, and in your case, Mike, right? Actually, both of you, the programs you're putting on, conferences and whatnot.
I'll go first and say there are a lot of great organizations, Women in Drones, AUVSI, and others that are focused more on the smaller UAS. And so we don't need to work in that area as hard, as there's no other international organization for vertical flight copters and larger aircraft. So we love all types of vertical flight. We have a lot of stuff with micro air vehicles. Actually, that is one point. We do have a student drone, electric drone competition, design, build, vertical flight, where students have to design, and we limited it to, I think, 15 pounds this year, but do different courses to show not only hover maneuverability and things like that, but also endurance and efficiency. So Vertical Flight Society is all the technologies and helping to advance everything, but from I'll say a business aspect and things like that, there are other organizations that are much more focused and do a much better job on that. So we're trying to focus on our strengths and our unique contributions.
And I think the same could be said for you, Jason. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, absolutely, Dawn, as well. And just to echo what Mike said as well, is there's other organisations that do a fantastic job in sort of working on sort of the VTOL from the hobbyist levels. From eVTOL Insights point of view, we're very much focused on the eVTOL aircraft and urban air mobility markets, and that's the passenger carrying services, but also the cargo carrying services as well, and the logistics side. Because while we all want to envision a day when we can take an eVTOL aircraft from one part of a city to another, there's also a lot of other different use cases, that we report about as well. So I know a company in Switzerland, D4 Aerospace, they're working on Aero 3, which is more for transporting, using the aircraft that's got more advantages than helicopters to transport patients over Alps or, really hard to reach terrain as well, to the likes, as I said, like the Jobies, the Archers, the Wisk, the Vertical Aerospace that are building the eVTOL aircraft to do that zero emissions travel sort of from point A to point B. So yeah, long story short, in an answer, yeah, we're very much focused on the eVTOL aircraft and the more passenger carrying, logistics, and cargo carrying as such. But there are, as Mike said, a lot of really other good organisations that focus on that area than us.
There are, and I know you both in some respects collaborate with them, because Mike, I know, I don't want to steal your thunder if this is your third thing, and I don't think it is. You just recently held like a several hour kind of co-located event, if you will, at AUVSI Exponential on vertical flight. So there are absolutely ways that Mike and his team are partnering with these other groups, but I would agree, I didn't want to speak for either one of you, that you're more focused on kind of those larger aircraft, the vertical flight, the cargo, the passenger planes. So Mike, let's get to number 3 of your initiatives, and then I really want to pivot hard right and talk about this FAA news within the last week as being one of the top stories that's out there, because I think it's got some people spooked about what the future is for this industry, this being the larger aircraft. So let's get to your number 3 and then we'll go there.
Yeah, so hydrogen is the other big thing. So we held what apparently was the first conference in North America on hydrogen electric aircraft, or hydrogen for aviation. And it was a little bit bizarre because we're the Vertical Flight Society. We're kind of focused on more of a niche compared to, the big aviation world. But for us, hydrogen is a game changer. I mean, the airliners, others are looking at it as a sustainability improvement. If you burn hydrogen for engines, it's not 100% zero emissions. Hydrogen fuel cells can be. Batteries, I've said for many years, batteries suck. They just don't have the energy density that gasoline, other fossil fuels have. It's like 5%, 1/20th amount of energy as a equivalent weight of jet fuel, and hydrogen is kind of 4 times as much as jet fuel has. Now it's a lot of claptrap. It's the hydrogen fuel cells, a lot of volume, stuff like that. There are a lot of challenges with hydrogen. People talk about it. Oh yeah, we're just going to make it hydrogen. It's hard. It's not clear that the hydrogen will earn its way onto eVTOL aircraft. So we're looking at those challenges, and if we can solve all the challenges, it will revolutionize the current vision for eVTOL. So we brought this community together. We had the first workshop, I said, in March in Long Beach, and we had Airbus, we had big aviation, we had trucks, truck people, car people that have been driving hydrogen fuel cell cars for 5 or 10 years. So there's a lot of maturity in the automotive industry, and we're really looking at it as something that's really game changing for aviation.
I love that, Mike. And you mentioned hydrogen. There was actually at least one that I saw, hydrogen as a service company at AUVSI Exponential, and I went right over to them like, okay, this is interesting, let's talk. And I'm hoping at some point to actually get these guys like on the podcast, because I agree. I think this is super important. But you just said a word. This is a perfect segue to what I really want to talk about, which is some of the challenges that we're seeing for this industry. And let's just go there. Let's talk about this. I think you called it turd in the punch bowl that was thrown last week. on the concept of certification for these aircraft. So Mike, I'm going to go to you first, and then Jason, I'm going to you. So Mike, give us the context, and then I'm going to have Jason give kind of his perspective.
It sounded like there you said certification, but I think you actually said certification. But I heard certification.
No pun intended.
Yeah. So we've seen this go back as far as 2011. So 11 years ago, the FAA said, "Hey, we need to rewrite Part 23 to take advantage of these new technologies." There's 2011. People were starting to fly electric aircraft. We need to look at the current certification basis, Part 23 for airplanes, and figure out like how we can make the certification basis, the standards, airworthiness standards, more amenable for this. In the past, the Part 23, the small airplane standards for in the FAA, where your carburetor has to output this amount, your fuel tank has to do this. So it's very proscriptive. And so they said, we're going to make performance-based specs. Your fuel has to be safe. Your motor has to be safe. Things like that.
And then you'd have to like basically get a means of compliance, basically, right?
Yeah. You have to show how you're going to. Sorry, exactly right. So the first part is, the top level objectives, and they have your means of compliance. This is how we're going to prove to you that this fuel system or this motor or whatever is safe. And then it has to be approved, accepted by the FAA. There's different standards to be incorporated. And in one of these first documents back in 2011, there was a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, depicted in that. So from 11 years, Part 23 has been designed for electric aircraft, for vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, etc. And even as recently as a few months ago, before the Administrator Dixon departed, he was talking about Part 23 for aircraft certification. And then the Friday before last, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, the FAA met with a couple of the industry, the leading industry companies that were planning to certificate their aircraft, and they said, yeah, we're going to do it Part 21, using 2117B, which is a special class of airworthiness. So every other aircraft is, normal aircraft are under Part 2117A, which is like regular aircraft, and then they have this special class. And I thought it was originally written for the tilt rotor. Somebody told me no, it's actually for balloons or something. But the FAA has not shown its ability to certificate anything.
Well, Mike, I'm going to interrupt you here because I might be speaking out of turn, but I know we could. We know this because they're applying that, I think, by policy also to small UAS for certification. Is that correct? Or not for small, but not the ones that fall outside of Part 107. By policy, they're applying, Part 21.1B or whatever, and nobody's been certified, to my knowledge. So we know this. So let's go to Jason for a second. Jason, we've seen some news on this. We've seen people saying, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, the SPAC money's going to dry up, no one's going to want to invest now, it's going to spook people. What are you hearing on the news front about this?
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. So yeah, you're right. There was a lot of I wouldn't say panic, but there was certainly a lot of discussion, and I'm sure Mike will agree as well. Certainly on LinkedIn, Twitter, there was a lot of people go, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for the industry as well? So, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that many of the eVTOL companies are working towards certification. So many of the questions that we had up was, well, what does this mean for them? We've seen the likes of, I think Lilium have sort of pushed back their sort of certification plans as well. So does this shed new light? What does this mean as well? So the story that we've done on our website as well kind of just sort of does a bit of a blow-by-blow account, because we know that a lot of other media outlets, the Air Current broke the story, I think on the 10th of May last week. So we've just done a bit of a review as to kind of what this all sort of means as well with our writer Chris Stoner as well. So we've seen that the social media, as we know, just jump on the stories, and there was actually a few, people that are against, anti eVTOL sort of in the saying that this might be the death knell, they say, of this emerging industry as well. But everyone's entitled to their opinion and such as well. But I think it's too early to say sort of as to what this impact is, and I think people, from what I've seen, might maybe been quite a bit too quick to judge. There's still a lot of work left to be done in this industry as well in terms of certification. So I know Mike mentioned with the piece that we did is that I'm conscious that everyone has an opinion on the conclusion and stuff as well. So I know Mike made some very good points on top of our article as well. But my honest view as well, Dawn, is that it's still very early days. Very interesting to know when the FAA did come out with that. And I don't think we'll hear the last of this. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we should get some clarity on that, of which we'll sort of report and discuss. But it's a subject that's not going to go away, I don't think.
So speaking of that, Jason, if you could take a second, drop that in the chat. And we're down to our last couple minutes, gentlemen. So while Jason's typing, I'm gonna go off script here. We're gonna do a quick lightning round. All right. So these are like 30-second answers, everybody, so we can get this done in time. Okay. In what country would you say you've seen the most progress for eVTOL? You first, Mike.
Well, definitely the U.S. And the U.S. has the most aircraft under development, and working on some of the longest, and Germany also. So U.S. and Germany have been working on the longest. So those are U.S. This is in order: U.S., Germany. The UK with vertical has done incredible work, and there's so much stuff coming out of China now.
Okay, cool. 30 seconds up. Your turn, Jason. And by the way, if my Oz behind the scenes can drop, the directory that Vertical Flight Society puts out, which is incredible, that talks about all the aircraft in design, all stages of production. If we can get that link, and everybody needs to check that out. So Jason, what would you say? I said top, but Mike went three, so top three countries.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Mike on the US and Germany in terms of the work they've done. Airbus has done a urban mobility initiative in the last couple of weeks that we've done. I'd like to give mention to the Asia Pacific region. There's a lot of work done in there with China, with EHang, with Japan, SkyDrive, Korea. We've seen Joby work with loads of companies in there as well. We broke an exclusive with EHang going into Thailand. Australia worth mentioning as well, with Skyports doing the infrastructure as well. So I think, and Volocopter, in Singapore. So USA, Germany, definitely Europe, UK, lots of really key markets, but I do think Asia Pacific is a real key market that will be a lot of interest there.
I agree. So, all right, real quick. Give me a year when you think, actually, no kidding, launching VTOL cargo drones first. Jason, you.
Oh, yeah, good question. Well, we've seen
literally a one-word answer. Give me a year.
Okay. 2024.
Okay, Mike, you.
That's good.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I said same thing. It's 2024 or 2025. I think cargo and passenger are really kind of the same thing. I mean, they both need the same level of safety.
Okay, awesome. All right, now, Mike, I'm going back to you, and I'm going to say one-word answer. What is the greatest challenge for eVTOL, the industry, to succeed? One word.
Money.
Money. Jason.
Making money.
That was my one. Public acceptance, or as we said in our conference, social desirability. The fact that we need to get the public on board to get on these aircrafts, to not basically turn against the industry before it's even begun. That's going to be absolutely crucial, and a lot of work's already been done to help that. So yeah, the more the merrier. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to give you each your 30-second elevator speech to close us out, and then I'm going to do some admin comments, and then we are out here because we are already at 1 minute to time. So we're going to go maybe a couple seconds over, but Mike, 30 seconds, you go.
Yeah, I'll just say the FAA needs to get its act together and not blindside industry and come out with these dumb decisions without proper consultation. And it's currently the acting administrator that is responsible for this. And I don't know if we get an actual administrator, if he or she can set things right.
All right, so I'll have to do my disclaimer. I'm like, I'm friends with the FAA, but no, you're entitled to your opinion, and I think you represent a lot of people in industry. How they're feeling right now, very frustrated. So, Jason, 30 seconds over to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you ever so much, Dawn, and really appreciate the conversation we've had. We're in a really exciting time for the industry at the moment. There's a lot of investment coming in. There's a lot of development. Still a lot of work to do, as I said at the start, but what a time to be working in this industry as well, to see all the partnerships taking place. The fact that there's going to be, we could be seeing the first eVTOL aircraft flights within the next couple of years is something that's really exciting as well. So we're proud to be playing a part in that. Couldn't do it without the great work of yourself, Dawn, Mike, and loads of other people that I can't possibly mention in the 30 seconds or however many time I've got left as well. So we're continuing to do our part. eVTOLinsights.com is our website where you can check us out for all the news, podcasts, videos, and conferences as well. So Dawn, thank you ever so much as always for giving me an opportunity to talk about this wonderful market.
Well, thank you both. We have to find a way to talk longer and more because you guys are a hoot. I mean, this is such great information. And this is such a dynamic area of the industry, of regulation, of public acceptance, as Jason mentioned. So thank you both so much for taking the time and giving us some of your insights into what you're seeing in this industry. Speaking of which, don't forget everybody, tomorrow on our Clubhouse Drone Law Connections, 11 a.m. Mountain, we've got two really incredible folks also